Welcome to Women, Men, and Relationships. I'm JJ Flazanes, your host. Thank you for downloading today's show. Today we're going to talk about the courage to use your voice. And I've got a dear friend and fellow podcaster, Ruby Fremon, as our guest today. But before we get started on today's show, I want to do a few announcements. The first is that we are coming upon the end of January, and some of you have had interest in our whale trip, our dolphin and whale wisdom trip that's happening in Panama, July 7th through the 14th, I believe, or 13th. There were only 12 spots total that were available, and I think I'm down to 5. So if you're interested in that whale trip, you need to put down a deposit, get in touch with me so we can reserve your spot now. There are payment plans available. If you want to spread it out over the next 5 months, that's totally fine. But it is a once-in-a-lifetime kind of opportunity because not only will you be learning from Anne and getting sort of the intuitive hit and the messages channeling from the dolphins and the whales and the healings, we're also going to be doing some movement. We're going to be doing some meditations and some creative visualizations. So I'm going to package the whole thing together that not only going to get Anne and, of course, the magical experience with dolphins and whales, you're going to get me too. So I don't know that it's something I would do every year. So maybe if we have such an amazing time, I'll do it like in another 2 years. So it's really going to be just this one time. Even if it goes gangbusters, I'm still not going to do it every year because there's so many other opportunities to experience all over the world that I definitely want to, bring those to you as well. So just email me, jjflazanes.com, and let me know if you're interested in reserving one of the last 5 slots for July 7th in Panama, the Dolphin and Whale Wisdom Retreat. And I have all the details for you. Also, this week, in a few days from now, on the 24th of January, I'm doing a webinar about the 3 biggest myths in weight loss and a proven plan to get you to your goals. I've been a personal trainer for 20 years. It never ceases to amaze me how often we keep perpetuating bad information and people are just frustrated and then give up on themselves because they think some of the information that's been around for a long time works, or it worked when you were 20, but now that you're 50, it doesn't work any longer and now you don't know what to do. Guys, this is science. This is what I specialize in. There is science to the body. There's science to exercise, both behavioral science as well as physical science, neurological science, gut and brain connection science, so many sciences. And it's very frustrating for me to watch all of you that yo-yo diet just get down and think that there's no way to help you. So I invite you on to the live webinar. It will be recorded. And again, it is Thursday, January 24th at 11 a.m. Pacific time and 2 p.m. Eastern time. Is that what that is? Yeah. So come on, sign up. It's jjflazanes.com/myths, MYTHS. Again, jjflazanes.com/myths. If you can't make it live, but you have questions, you can absolutely email me questions that I will answer on the webinar. And otherwise, I'd love to see you there live to answer the questions live. So I hope that you'll join me, jjflazanes.com/myths. So today's show, Ruby is the coach for the new generation of thought leaders. As a top breakthrough coach for purpose-driven leaders who are ready to bring their big missions into the spotlight, her no-bullshit approach ignites true transformation while flipping fear into actualized ambition and doubt into absolute confidence. Ruby works with leaders, from artists to entrepreneurs, who are ready to rise above their limitations and amplify their message. Coaching 100-plus clients, she's a catalyst for change and hugely successful at helping her clients embody radical resiliency and an unstoppable mentality. Named an Inspirational Woman by the Huffington Post and an icon of influence at 2018 New Media Summit, Ruby is the visionary behind Amplified Soul Live, an annual 3-day transformative leadership event. She is the founder of the Thought Leader Collective and host of today's Thought Leader podcast, and uses her bold, no-nonsense approach to help leaders rise up, fulfill their missions, and make their voices heard. Welcome to the show, Ruby.
Thank you, JJ. I'm super stoked to be here with you today.
I'm excited to have you. You definitely are someone I want to introduce to my community because of your branding. And by branding, people, I mean the sort of the way in which Ruby does things. So Ruby is also a podcaster, as you've heard in her bio, and she is very in your face, to the point, using some swear words, which is good. We're going to use them. This will be an explicit show for those of you that don't know. Right. Yeah, I do. In fact, Doug and I recorded last night and I was dropping F-bombs and he was like, I'm swearing a lot today. He goes, yeah, it's kind of sexy. I was like, well, there wasn't really a reason. It just sort of happened. And, but why Ruby is so her show was called or is still called Love Punch.
It was called Love Punch.
Right.
And now it is today's thought leader.
So the Love Punch wasn't about relationships, which is why she changed it. But the Love Punch was like, I'm going to punch you with love. Like, I'm going to wake you up. I'm going to get you out of your comfort zone. I'm going to get you into taking a stand and becoming who you are. And I think there's a lot of crossover and needed authenticity, needed in your face, no bullshit, no standing behind a fake facade kind of thing. Anyway, so I wanted to introduce Ruby to you guys because she, like me, also has events that she does, and she's a coach as well. And her message is really powerful. And I thought there's a bunch of you who I know, especially some of you that came to Releasing What Weighs You Down, who are on the verge of taking that next action step to get your message out into the world. So before we get too far down my opinion about why I'm having you on the show, which they've already heard a little bit about that before we started, why don't you get us, Ruby, to how you even got here? Like, how you're very specific in your energy, how you use it in being a thought leader and a leader in the world, but how did you get here?
Yeah, that's a fully loaded question. So I'm going to give like the nutshell version, but enough for people to understand. You know, my entire life, I felt like I didn't have a voice. I was raised, I grew up in a conservative, a more conservative than most culture. And during my upbringing, I wasn't encouraged to speak about my feelings. Anytime I did, I would feel shunned for it, and feel incredibly misunderstood. I dealt with anxiety and depression from a very young age. My onset was around the age of 11. And at that time, people didn't talk about mental illness. And so anytime I tried to explain what I was feeling, it it just wasn't heard. It wasn't landing on my loved ones. They didn't understand what I was going through and just stuck a label on me saying that I was moody and I was stubborn and I was selfish because I'd want to retreat by myself and isolate myself. And to grow up in that way, feeling so deeply misunderstood, what happens is you just continue to isolate and retract. So eventually, in my adolescent years, like I just started experimenting, putting on different characters, playing different roles, trying to fit in high school. I ended up getting married at a very, very young age. And it was then when shit really hit the fan. I was 20. I was dealing with some really major trauma in my family. And at the age of 22, I was diagnosed with PTSD, clinical depression, anxiety disorder, rheumatoid arthritis, and fibromyalgia. And the fibro was so awful that I couldn't even get out of bed most days. And if you were to just touch me lightly on the arm, it would feel like a dozen sharp knives. I was in a lot of pain, both mentally and spiritually and physically. And I didn't have a support system around me to really get through this. And in fact, the support system that was there made me feel even more misunderstood, because they just didn't get it. And so again, that pattern of isolating, hiding, feeling really ashamed for how I was feeling. Eventually, after given a slew of medications from my doctors, because that's what they do, I became addicted to benzos. And the addiction really took me on this other journey of like, oh wow, here I actually have control over numbing myself out. I can control these emotions now with these magic pills. And I was abusing them. Pharmacists and doctors, no one asked why I was getting so many refills. And it wasn't until I attempted suicide at around, I believe it was around the age of 23, 24, And I came out of it. I tried to overdose. And I remember um, my husband at the time, and him just getting really mad at me. And it was a situation where I found myself like, oh, he just doesn't understand. And why the fuck am I alive? And why didn't this work? And this all sucks. And I just want to experience something different. And that was a major turning point. I started seeking holistic health, and got off all my medications, and really learned how to live with these diagnoses, and also start to heal from the inside out. That doesn't mean everything got really good really fast. In fact, it got even more tumultuous, and I ended up becoming addicted to alcohol and drugs, recreational drugs, and was in and out of abusive relationships after leaving my husband. And it just, I feel there's so much of me that felt like, that feels like that was so needed. Like I really needed to go through the pits of hell in order to discover the fact that I have a power of choice. And what I mean by that is, here I am, an addict in a highly abusive relationship. I leave that relationship now, and now it's 2012. And I find myself in this space of like, I'm an addict. I'm surrounded by toxic friends. I feel like shit all the time. And every single choice that I have made in my life has led me to this moment. Interesting. And so that was a major piece of enlightenment for me, to then take ownership for once in my life. Taking ownership, there's so many things that are not within our control, but for me, understanding that an accumulation of my choices got me to this place, that felt like it was something in my control. And if I could choose these things, then what would happen if I chose something different? What would happen if I started choosing uh, in fact, the opposite of what I would normally choose? What would happen if I chose healthy friends or healthy things for myself? And I started reconstructing my life in 2012. And again, it was a roller coaster ride of trying new things, not having it work, going back into my addiction, and getting sober again. And really, it wasn't until the end of 2012, had a major concussion. I came out of that concussion, and that was it. Like I had finally made a decision. Like I am going to live a different life. I am done with this. And it was from there, and that was 2013, that I began building this life that you see me live today. And in building this life, this was the interesting part. I started finding my voice, and it felt like I didn't even know what my voice sounded like for so many years. And during this process of getting better, during this process of healing, I started to find my voice by blogging about my experience. I wanted to share what I was going through, not for other people, but to hold myself accountable, because I felt that if I were to create a blog post on Tumblr in some like random account, so nobody knew who I was, it would be out on the internet, and I had to stick to the plan. And so that was my thing. And I created this blog, and I started blogging about what I was going through. And then one day I was brave enough to share one of those posts on my Facebook so everyone could see it. And that was the day where I realized that there is great power in using our voices, because I had so many people reach out to me, um, filling me in on what they were going through, and letting me know that my post gave them permission to then also share what they've been going through. They felt less alone. And I all of a sudden had this feeling of like, wow, this feels purposeful. Like now I'm no longer blogging for myself. Like there's a real purposeful intention behind me sharing my story. And so I just continued to lean into that more and more and more. Leaning into my voice, leaning into my truth, and leaning into the power of my story while healing, while being on my healing journey, eventually becoming a coach. And I mean, since 2013, it's really been just this continuous leaning into my voice to rediscover who I am. And within that, my message has become so much more clear. My branding has become so much more clear. Who I'm here to serve, I'm so clear on that. There is so much more clarity in my life and in my business because of the fact that I have chosen to be courageous enough to lean into my voice. And my purpose in this world is simply that, is to help other people lean into the courage to use their voice. Because when we shy away from our truth, we create our own suffering. And that is what I learned. And so if I can act as a catalyst for this new generation of thought leaders, for them to show up in bigger and bolder and more amplified ways for their mission, then imagine the ripple effect that would happen in this world. And that's just how I choose to see it. So that's my nutshell of a story.
Well, I learned a lot that I didn't necessarily know before. We haven't covered all of that
Right.
before. So thank you for that. And I love that you're here to help people find the courage to use their voice. And that is definitely very apparent in your branding and in what you're doing. And so when you were going through all of that, were you on the path of being an entrepreneur, or were you doing something else and then your voice took you on a new path?
Yeah, in 2013, had just started working as an entrepreneur for my social media company. That's the company I had, and it was like this company I just created because I didn't want to stay at my other job. It was just this thing I did. And then when I branched off into coaching, that's when I really took it to this whole other level, because now all of a sudden it's unfamiliar territory. I knew all the marketing stuff. I'd done that for years. Now I'm entering this unfamiliar territory where I need to put myself out there, me, my name, myself, my voice. And that just, for me, that took it to a whole other level of showing up and using my voice and leaning into my truth, because I wasn't hiding behind a brand and I wasn't hiding behind a company anymore. It was me.
Yeah, so often people do. And I had started Invisible Fitness with the idea of the work being sort of front and center. And I mean, I still have it today, and it still is. But obviously the brand changed. And I realized that as I was creating products and programs and books and everything, that really that it needed to be all funneled through me, because
Mm-hmm.
ultimately it was, again, my voice. And I do happen to have a company, and sometimes people find me through me, or find me through the company, but nonetheless, I totally understand. A lot of times, in fact, that's even how I started my first business. The company was a different name, and I used it as leverage because it had been around for, at that time, I think 8 years,
Mm-hmm.
6 or 8 years in New York City. And I had branded and franchised, if you will, their company, because they had history, and they
Yeah.
had relationships, and they had a client list, and they had some famous clients. And so I utilized the leverage. I felt more confident coming out under their name, but realized very
Mm.
quickly within the first year that wasn't going to sustain me, because the brand, the underlying energies were very different. And so
Right.
obviously then I had to find my own next new brand, which Invisible Fitness has allowed me to grow in every way, shape, and form under that umbrella, which I totally appreciate. But one of the things that I think is needed in our conversations is more authenticity, is more real, is more love punch in the face, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
And I know a lot of people want to put on that, even in the work that I'm doing with people. There's a balance between what people are hearing. And I know
Mm-hmm.
you're a Virgo. Do you know what your moon sign is?
Libra.
Right. Right. Okay, extra
Because
confused.
remember, you were
Yeah,
like, if you're a Virgo moon, we
right.
can't be
No, I
friends.
knew you weren't a Virgo moon, but you're right. But now, okay, right. Okay, so again, back to like how people hear things, like even in the world of law of attraction, you don't know how many times I've had arguments on the show with people who come in and start bashing law of attraction. And because they say, well, most people don't understand it. I'm like, I understand that. That is not me, and that is not my audience,
Right.
hence my show. So please stop generalizing that everyone is doing it wrong,
Mm-hmm.
because of how they're interpreting. Oh, I can't ever feel sad. No, that is not what law of attraction says. Or
Right.
I have to put on affirmations to pretend that anyway. So it's really not, I get it. Like, and we're in with social media, especially, and it feels really perfect for you that it came out of you having a social media company, because fortunately and unfortunately, a lot of the times what people decide to share on social media is all the good stuff. And
Right.
so, and they do it in like out of balance with, sort of, not that someone needs to be putting on that they're depressed, because then we have the people who are on the opposite side always sort of being victimized and wanting to share that for love and attention on social media. But social media is such a not real, like, right? I mean, most of
Yeah.
the time, not real life experience, see the good, the bad, the ugly, the struggle, the
Mhm.
processes of how somebody gets from point A to point B in their lives,
Mhm.
or some kind of healing or discovery. And so I think it's even more fascinating that we've come from, oh, let's paint this picture through social media, and that's a company, right? And I do social media, I love social
Yep.
media, but again, you're sort of punch you in the face with a little bit of reality or honesty, or I'm not going to fall into a box that you think I should, or be proper, or, I'm going to say what I want to, and I'm going to do it so that it wakes you up a little bit out of your comatose, everybody is happy, everything is great,
Right.
or the reverse, everything is crap and the world is going to die and fall apart and we're going to, all be
Mhm.
miserable. So I do appreciate that. And I wanted to, again, sort of share that with everyone who's listening, because I think too often we have these unspoken expectations that we're supposed to look perfect. Now you have it doubly here. You've got like, so the Virgo part of, right, that perfection, doing it right, having things in order, how it looks like to other people on the outside. And then the Libra battle of I don't know which way to go because I can argue both sides, and I do care what people think, and I do want it to be pretty. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
uh, but how can I honor my emotions and do that? And it's almost like you had to step out in order to honor your truth, honor, like you
Mhm.
said, honor who you are, honor what the no judgment, real inside of you needed to say, and all of the things
Yeah.
that happen along the way.
Yeah, and at the beginning it was for me. It was really me doing that for me, and then it became this whole other thing of like, wow, by me healing myself in this way, it's actually serving this greater purpose. And so it's been a really interesting journey to just be on, and then to also witness the ripple effect of what's happening. Because you're right, like, social media is it's an incredible tool. It's an incredible um, platform. It's got multitude of platforms where we can connect with people that we normally have not been able to reach. In the past, without social media, we can't reach people on the other side of the planet. Like, that just never happened. Now, all of a sudden, we're connected. We're all connected, and yet we're so disconnected. We're so disconnected because people are not being real. They're showing up in ways that are very fabricated, because we are in charge of our digital footprint. Like, we actually have the power to create this perfect Instagram feed or this perfect Facebook feed. We have the power to create our image online, which is a gift and it's a crutch, because we can get obsessed with trying to portray a perception of us, or how we want to be perceived, when in reality, in order to create connection with other people, with your audience, with your following, with potential clients and customers and consumers, you need to be real, because being real is what creates the relatability. So, for example, by me sharing my story and sharing aspects of my story, and showing the ups and downs that happen with entrepreneurship, and not just all the highs, people are able to connect with that because it's real. All of a sudden, they have something that they can relate to, which creates that connection, which draws them in even further. And that is what is needed right now as a conscious collective, is we need to connect in that way.
We also need to be connecting in person, and
Yes.
that is what I have been doing, and that is what you are doing. and
Hmm.
and I think that, I know, based on my last event, there were a lot of women that found a voice that they didn't have before. And I'm hearing feedback from their spouses or from their children or from people around them that they are lighter, that they are more confident. And and that's the gift, but I think it has to be in conjunction. So I think there's the message, but for a lot of people, because we're so disconnected physically,
Hmm.
and we're all listening to things and watching things from behind our screens or our phones, that we think of these ideas but we don't get to embody them. And
Right.
so I'm a big fan of that. We have to connect because we've lost
Hmm.
the family dinners, and the lots of people don't necessarily, I mean, some people still go to churches. I mean, we're going to be going on Sunday to
Hmm.
Agape, but we don't go every week. But, even with podcasters, and we love going to sort of podcasting things because all of a sudden we found our community of people who are just like us doing things sort of on a mission, but by
Mhm.
ourselves and solo behind a desk and a computer and a microphone. So
Yeah.
this connection in person is really, I think, what gels it all together. It takes a lesson from an idea to an embodiment and to
Mhm.
an expression that then can be replaced with tools and lessons and insights and healings. So that
Mhm.
way now we can actually move forward with this. So I know you have an event coming up, and before we get to your event, because I'm a big fan of events, everyone, as you know, I mean, I'm going to continue to do some. I've got 2 on the books for this year, and there'll be at least 2 or 3 on the books for next year. Tell us how people can, reach you. I know we're going to get to that at the end of the show too, but what are the things how are you putting out your work into the world to help people? So I know you've got a podcast and you're doing coaching. So where can people find you and get your information to get inspiration and clarity from you?
Yeah, so you can find me on social media. I frequent Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter, and my handle is at I am Ruby. And if any of this resonates with you, if you have any questions or anything at all, like just reach out, hit me up in a DM. I am very, very responsive and highly engaged with my online community. And then you can also check out my website, rubyfremont.com. Yeah, that's how you can find me.
Well, hold on. You have a podcast. We're
Oh,
on a
yes, and I
podcast.
have a podcast. Hello.
Tell us about your podcast.
My podcast, it's called Today's Thought Leader, and I have conversations with new generation thought leaders as well as experts in helping you bring your message to the masses. It's a very raw and real conversational podcast that I love hosting. My guests are super real. And if you're open to hearing maybe 2 to 20 fucks in a row, then this is a really great podcast for you.
Well, let's just say if that word really, really, really bothers you, it's something to look at, because it's really just used for emphasis. It's not necessarily
Yes.
to offend anybody,
Yes.
but as someone who needs to find their voice, wants to practice using their voice, and so definitely if you're someone who doesn't, you think it's, well, you're still listening to my show, and I've been dropping a bunch of them recently, so uh, maybe not 20 on a
Right.
show.
Right.
I got to contain Doug. He puts a lot of them in there
Yeah.
sometimes, depending on how passionate we start talking about things.
Yeah.
So yeah, so today's thought leader with Ruby, definitely check out her podcast. Obviously that is free. And what is your schedule for your show? Is it once a week, twice a week?
Currently it's once a week, but it's moving to twice a week in a week and a half. So
Excellent.
every Monday there's a new episode. It's a conversation, and then Thursdays are my solo episodes.
Great. So I know a lot of you, some of you have come to Releasing What Weighs You Down. Some of you are at the next big step. And I know that you are sort of where Ruby was or Ruby is in terms of needing that next level of finding your voice, honing in your voice, and how to utilize your voice in the world. And you have an event coming up called Amplified Soul Live.
Yes.
Why don't you talk about that?
Yeah, so Amplified Soul Live really is an event that is there to help you amplify your presence, your influence, and your impact. Presence is really embodiment. It's your energy in action. And so the way that I teach visibility um, is about who you're being and the way in which you're embodying your message. So if you have a purpose, whether you're in full pursuit of it or not, if you have a purpose and you feel called to bring that purpose to life, to lead your mission, and if you're already leading your mission and you want to lead it in a bigger way, then this event is for you, because what we do is we provide strategies and tools to help you stand out above the rest, to help you really connect with your audience, therefore creating a loyal following, and to help you build yourself up to a place where you can show up in your power unapologetically and feeling like your most unleashed self online and offline.
I love it. And it's, again, a way to take the ideas and information that you've been learning and been hearing about and taking it to the next level. So if you're
Yeah.
ready to do that, let's talk about logistics.
Yes, so this takes place in Los Angeles, February 22nd to the 24th. And I have to add in, the community is worth the investment alone. The community is amazing. We focus on connection and collaboration, so the collaborating continues even after the event. But it's being held at the beautifully redesigned Mayfair Hotel in downtown Los Angeles this year, and I'm so excited because the location is just stunning. So yeah, that's that. There are tickets available, rubyfremont.com/ASL, and I would love to see you there. If you have questions, just reach out to me on social media, and I'd be more than happy to answer them for you. But I would absolutely love to see you there.
So if you're a thought leader and you missed Releasing What Weighs You Down, I'm not having anything until October that would deal anything with things like this. So I would absolutely recommend that you get your butt to Amplified Soul Live. And here's what I'm going to throw in for my community, since I know it's about a month away and it's January. If you are from my community and you are interested in attending Ruby's event, I will throw in the virtual ticket from Releasing What Weighs You Down, the first one, because that one is done. So you could actually have access to it right now. And that is valued at $297. I'm also going to throw in a one-on-one session with me, also valued at $250. So we're looking at $550 in bonuses. And one is a personal session with me. And the other one is, again, the Releasing What Weighs You Down event from January of 2018. And that is worth $300. And you can start doing that now. So if you bought your ticket now and you're kicking yourself because you didn't come to Releasing What Weighs You Down, and you're like, I want to go through that course. Again, last year was different than this year, but last year was as impactful. You can get access to that immediately and start going through some of the clearings and some of the exercises and some of the food things, and really just start doing the work now in preparation to be ready to integrate what you're going to learn at Ruby's event, plus what you're already ready to do. You know you're ready, you're just sort of on the fence. So
Yeah.
if that's of interest to you, you can buy your ticket, but then you're gonna have to come back to me and let me know that you bought your ticket, and I will grant you those two bonuses. And let's make that, well, obviously her event starts on the 22nd. So you have until, for these bonuses, let's make it like, I mean, do you have to have a deadline for ticket sales, Ruby? Or
I mean, let's say, now I have to pull out my calendar, February 5th.
okay, so these are going to be available, these bonuses, until February 5th. And if you need to ask more questions, what is the best way to get to you for private messaging, Ruby?
Yeah, the best way to get to me is you can either message me directly on Instagram at I am Ruby. I'm super responsive there, or on my Facebook page. And that's facebook.com/I am Ruby. I'm also very responsive there.
Everyone, go to Instagram and follow Ruby, and go to the website and check out the checkout. And I'll have, me in show notes. I don't really do them. So why don't we go over what the link is? It's
Yes, it's
good.
Ruby Fremon. That's spelled RUBY, F as in Frank, REMON.com/ASL.
Let's talk about community for a second, because
Yes.
let's talk about what community means for you. I've been talking about it for the last couple of weeks here on my show because of the event that just happened, and
Mm-hmm.
my community at the event, does the show and adds their testimonials, and literally, like, most of them mention the community. Everybody mentions it
Yes.
over and over and over again. And until you're in a room full of like-minded people who get you and who aren't judging you, who are there to support you, you don't even know what you don't know. So tell
Yeah.
us, Ruby, what community means to you and where you have found it, and whether it be from last year's event that you did or for you personally.
For my event, my intention, this is the third event, Amplified Soul Live event I'm doing. And my intention from the very get-go with the first event was intention number one, community. Like, that was the first and foremost. And then everything fell after that, because I was seeing what was happening online, and I was experiencing the disconnect myself, and also the way in which people are now hiding more than ever. You know, it's safer to watch things from your screen, from your tablet, from your phone. It feels safer. And whether you recognize that you're doing this for safety reasons or not, like, this is why we're doing it. It feels safe. It keeps us safe. And so to put yourself in a room full of a lot of different people that you've never met before, it feels unsafe, it feels uncomfortable, and it opens you up to experiencing a level of connection that perhaps you've never experienced before, especially at events, because events are highly targeted. So, you know, JJ, for your events, you brought in a specific type of audience, and it's a group of like minds. So it's easier to connect with people who are like-minded, obviously. And so you got to think of events as like, we as the event producers are doing half the work for you. We've got a room full of people who are just like you, who have the same struggles, who have the same desires, who are yearning for the same thing. This creates an automatic level of connection. All you got to do is insert yourself in that room. And when I see the connections happening, it is such an incredible feeling, because one, people feel less alone in their shit. You realize you're not alone. And two, the potential expands, because now you have people who see you, people who see your gifts, people who encourage your gifts, and people who are there to support you in your gifts, and vice versa. And so everything amplifies. And that's like one of the biggest reasons why I love doing this event, is that community aspect. And for me personally, it's just that level of connection and feeling like I have people who actually see me and recognize my gifts and are there for me to support me. And that feeling alone, it's like having this cushion, you know, those bounce houses. I always think of it like this. It's kind of weird. You have those bounce houses that you bounce around in, the bounce castle.
Yeah.
And like, no matter what direction life throws you in, there's like a bouncy wall that's got you. That's how that's how I look at community. It's like my bounce castle. They're there for me. And it's just an incredible feeling, because you then can dive deeper into your potential, take bigger risks, do bigger things, and show up in a bigger way, because you know that you are supported.
I love that. No, I actually think it's really fun to bounce castle.
Right?
No, I like it. Now, I have to ask, because, you know, just in case people go and they check out the event, I don't know, do you have any kind of, you know, pricing, like if you
Yes.
do a payment plan or anything for people?
Yeah, so the price is $9.97 for the full 3 days. What it entails, what that includes, is the 3 days at the event, plus you get breakfast every morning. It's a gourmet breakfast, which is also an opportunity to connect further with your peers and with myself. But it is 3 days of really intensive training and connection that you can only experience transformation like this when you're in a container like this in person. So again, if this calls to you, make the investment in yourself and your growth and in this community, because I can guarantee you're going to leave feeling very grateful that you did this.
And if anyone, as we're, you know, we're a month away, so if there's anyone who really, really wants to come, but they may need like to work out a payment plan with you or something, like how flexible are you to work with somebody?
So the payment plans I was offering, and because we're so close to the date, I don't have a payment plan. However, right now, if you're listening, because this episode's releasing, I think, Monday, you have 1 day to submit a scholarship video. And you can find details for the Amplified Soul Live scholarship on my Instagram feed. Just look for the picture that says scholarship, and all the details are there. And you can enter to win a scholarship. I'm picking everyone on Tuesday for the scholarships. And don't hesitate to reach out and just share with me what's going on. I'm open to having a conversation with you and to supporting you in finding ways to make this happen.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, because it's, you know, it's important that we empower people, and we want to make sure that, you know, nothing kind of gets in the way, if you will. And if it's just, you know, it doesn't hurt to ask. You know, people reached out to me who didn't think they could come to my event, and I worked with them, and then they came and they, you know, had such huge transformation. So I just want to make sure
Mm-hmm.
that everyone who, don't take yourself out, you know, use your voice, have the courage
Yes.
to use your voice and ask Ruby if it's something that, she can work with you on. And don't forget, some of the free resources are her podcast, Today's Thought Leader. Anything else in terms of free resources that you have too, if they want to check you out real quick, besides your Instagram feed and your Facebook and your website?
Yeah, I have a ton of videos on Facebook, YouTube, youtube.com/I am Ruby. So you can check out my videos there. There's a ton. You can get lost in there. And then I also have a free 3-video training on my website, and that's rubyfremon.com/CPR.
Huh. Okay. That sounds good. I'll check that out. So now to conclude today's episode, if you had to, what are some of the things you would tell somebody, or what would you tell yourself? Let's dial this back, that when you were sort of at the lowest low and now you are so far from that, what would you have told yourself from where you are now back then that you think would have motivated you to, or have hope, or feel like it's all going to be good? What would you tell somebody?
So if I were to go back and talk to myself, I would say you are more resilient than you give yourself credit. All it takes for you to experience that is to lean into that resilience.
Good. Awesome. And for those that are having resistance, did you have resistance as well?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, and it was that I always say leaning in, because I'm a very visual person. And so when I feel things that I want to resist, to imagine myself leaning into it versus pushing myself away is often the thing that helps me tap into the courage within me to push through, or the resilience within me to push through, is just picturing myself leaning into whatever it is that is causing some sort of disruption.
Yeah, and leaning into it will help to kind of go through it, because remember, you have to feel it to heal it. So we can't avoid it and run away from it.
You cannot dust it under a rug and just expect it to go away. It's not.
Absolutely. Ruby, any last thoughts about sort of the needs that we have as a society to find the courage to use your voice, for the people that are right there but they're not quite there yet, or sort of the power that people are missing, or the power they have to influence others?
Yeah, just take that first step to using your voice. No matter how scary it is, just try it once. Tell yourself, I'm just going to try this once. I'm just going to do this once. I'm just going to speak my truth once. Let yourself experience the feeling that comes from that, without being attached to any sort of expectation from someone else, because this is really about you. This is ultimately about you finding your freedom and connecting to your power. It's not about anyone else or their reactions or how it affects them. It's about how using your voice is going to free you to experience a different level of empowerment.
Nice. Agreed. All right. Check her out. rubyfremon.com/ASL for the event. And again, today's Thought Leader podcast. And also I Am Ruby. You can find that on Instagram and Facebook. And the three, one more time with the link, it's rubyfremon.com/CPR.
CPR. CPR, for courage, persistence, resilience. And that's a free training. It's really, really good.
Excellent. All right, everyone, check out Ruby. Get in touch with the fact that you have a power within you that we need in this world. My goodness, we need it. So we want to tap into that. We want to use it, and we want to use it for good, not evil. So follow Ruby so we can transform the world with your voice. It is so needed. Ruby, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me.